So we continue on our part 2. So we have our alternative energy and renewable energy, and then at the end we have our green building lah. So we have two more subtopic left. Then we'll be finished with our last topic for our energy management lah. So for alternative energy and renewable energy, we have about 7 alternative and renewable energy in which we can harvest our electricity from. So renewable energy refers to energy resource that occurs naturally and repeatedly in the environment and can be harnessed for human benefit. So alternative and renewable energy is not the same. So here, nuclear power is a alternative energy. So it's generated using uranium. Geothermal power is a renewable energy. So we get the energy from the heat inside the earth. Solar power is also renewable energy from the sun. And then we have our wind power, energy from the air. Hydroelectric power, energy from falling water. And then lastly, biomass power, energy from organic material. So this last one, biomass, is also an alternative energy. It's not a renewable energy. So there is about 5 here. This 5 is renewable energy, and 2 of them are alternative energy, which is nuclear power and biomass power. So when you were to see that how is it different from these alternative and renewable energy, is that alternative energy, there's a source of fuel for alternative energy. So if you were to actually use up this source of fuel for the alternative energy, then you will not be able to generate any more energy lah. So here, if you look at this statement here, renewable energy refers to energy resource that occurs naturally and repeatedly. This energy can only be considered renewable if it occurs naturally and repeatedly. Means we know that we do not have to spend any effort to go and find the fuel, in which these 5 things lah. So we know heat is from the earth is constant. We know sun is also constant. Air is also constant. Water is also constant. We don't have to go to source to find out where the source of this energy is. We know it's always there. But when we go towards alternative energy, which is nuclear power and biomass power. So nuclear power, the fuel is uranium. Biomass power, the fuel is organic material. We are essentially using up this fuel to generate energy. So it's not considered a renewable energy, but an alternative energy. So nuclear power, so this is a nuclear power lah. Nuclear power is generated using uranium. So it produces about 16% of the world's energy needs. And then it produces a huge amount of energy from small amount of fuel without pollution that you get from burning fossil fuel. So this is an alternate way in which we can generate energy lah, instead of depending on fossil fuel. There's advantage to disadvantage of using nuclear power. So the advantage is it do not produce gases that contribute to acid rain or greenhouse effect. So produce huge amount of energy from small amount of fuel, produce small amount of waste, and is reliable. So essentially, nuclear power is actually very clean. But there's a disadvantage to it lah. So the 3 disadvantages is the waste produced is not much, but it's very dangerous. So as the name implied, nuclear. So how they generate energy is through the breakdown of the fuel lah. They break down uranium. So once uranium is being broken down, they are actually emitting a lot of energy. So this energy is being harvested. So, but the problem with nuclear power is the fuel is very dangerous, and then also a lot of also very hot lah. So one of the way to dispose of the radioactive material is to bury them and then build a bunker around them, and then also put a sign over there lah, a skull cross sign over there to ensure that people do not break into the vault. So a lot of money have to be spent on safety. So a nuclear accident can be a major disaster, as you will see in the is it Fukushima, Japan. So when a nuclear reactor have a problem, it will go kaboom lah. So if you go kaboom, then it will be like something like Hiroshima or Nagasaki lah during the World War II. The explosion will be very very big, and then there will be radiation after effect. So oh yeah, the that case. Okay, so there's a reservation towards the use of nuclear power. So we fear reactor accident. So if there's a reactor accident, if you want to fix it, it will be very difficult lah, because that area will be contaminated with very high radioactivity. So radioactivity will affect us in a very very long run, because it doesn't attack us physically, but it attack our genes, our cells physically. So it will actually break down the capability of our cells. So it doesn't affect animal, which have a very short lifespan of 10 years, but because we live up to about 70 years, 80 years, or maybe up to 100 years with the use of modern medicine. So because we are able to live so long, if we are actually exposed to high level of radiation, it will impact the ability of our cell to replicate. Means our cell won't be able to replicate itself. They will have defect. Once our cell is blasted with all this radiation, if our cell is not able to multiply, then we will have a very short lifespan lah. So this is why radiation is very dangerous to us human, because we live a very long lifespan. So we have environment problem of dealing with nuclear waste. So a few years back, it's actually prohibited to transport nuclear waste from one country to another. So we have environmental problem lah, because when you transport a nuclear waste to another country, you have to ensure that this nuclear waste is buried somewhere far away from human, because of radiation lah. So if you were to put it near to someone, then okay lah. I won't be showing you the picture. If you are interested to, you can search for the radiation effect, but the picture isn't very pretty lah. So just to let you guys know, so radiation have very bad effect on us human. So there is pictures all around internet of how radiation will affect the people. So it's not very pretty. So just to let you guys know lah. And then if you have nuclear power, it may also lead to nuclear weapon. So there's a very good advantages and disadvantage to nuclear power lah. So at the end of the day, nuclear energy from uranium is not renewable. So if you were to use up all the uranium, then there will not be any more nuclear power lah. But one thing for sure, we are able to generate very clean energy from very little fuel using nuclear power. But disposing of it is a problem lah, because it's radioactive and also it's very hot also lah. So a normal power plant, a lot of steam will be generated. So a lot of steam will be generated to turn the top, which will generate the electricity. If you were to mess it up, then we will have a nuclear explosion like here lah. So if most of the time we'll be building this nuclear reactor somewhere far from the residential area. But if an explosion were to occur, you will be seeing this mushroom cloud lah. So it's a very bad sign. If you were to see this, means we are gonna get blasted with radiation. Okay, so for the next one, we have our geothermal power. So geothermal power is energy from heat inside the earth. So we know that the earth is very hot, so you want to harness this heat energy from the earth. So how it works is hot rock underground heat water to produce steam, and then we drill hole to the hot region, then the steam come up, and then it's purified and used to drive the turbines, which drive electric generator. So this is a picture of how we want to harness the thermal power. We put in cold water into the hot region. We dig a hole very deep in which there will be a hot region. So this hot region usually will be near volcanic area lah, volcanic region, which means we want to find a semi-active volcano in which they have lava. So in Malaysia, we do not have a lot of active volcano region, so it's not very possible lah for us to harness all this geothermal energy. So if you do not have this geothermal or volcanic region, if you want to find an area hot enough, it's very difficult. So it's not feasible or in terms of cost efficient to dig a very deep hole so that you can get a region that is hot enough to heat up the cold water into steam. So we want to find, as this second picture, magma or lava. So this lava is a very good spot for a hot rock surface. It's a very good spot in which we can heat up the water to become steam, in which we can use to run the turbine to generate the electricity. So the advantages is it does not produce any pollution or contribute to greenhouse effect. So power stations do not take much room. There is no much impact on the environment. No fuel is needed. So you build a geothermal power station, energy is free. So the energy you generated from the power plant itself can be used to run them. And then here, the disadvantage is there are not many places on Earth where geothermal energy is available at depths we can drill down to. So this is what I just mentioned just now lah. So we want to dig to a region in which they have very hot rock. Either that or we have volcanic region lah. So if you don't have this facility nearby, if you want to obtain the heat directly from the earth itself, then we actually need to dig a hole very deep into the earth. So which is not very efficient lah. Okay, so continuing into this, so they need a hot rock of a suitable type in which we can easily drill to. So this hot rock is what will be the main way we generate the energy lah. We pump cold water to the hot rock, then we obtain the hot water from there. So if the area were to run out of steam, which means the hot rock is not hot anymore, then the geothermal power station will not be generating any more energy. Okay, so lastly, the disadvantage is hazardous gas may come up from underground and can be difficult to safely dispose of. So when we are drilling into the ground, there are cases in which we will come upon gasoline, gas, this sort of thing. So if we were to just blindly drill, then we will encounter all these kind of hazardous gases, and it's not easy to dispose of them safely. So usually what scientists will do is they will try to burn the gas if it's burnable. If it's not, then they will need to find a way to dispose of this gas. So geothermal energy is renewable because the energy keeps on coming from within the earth. So the next one is solar power, which is from the sun. So we have been using power from the sun for a very, very long time. We use it to dry our clothes and food. Now we are using it to generate power using solar panel. So we have three ways in which we can use the energy from the sun. We have our solar panel, which is a solar cell. We can convert the light into electricity, or solar water heating. So we use solar water heating uses heat from the sun to heat the water in glass panel on your roof. So water is pumped through pipe in the panel. So we are actually using the heat from the sun to heat our water for our shower. And then lastly is a solar furnace. So we use an array of mirror to concentrate it into a small area to produce very high temperature. So this is also to generate electricity. So this is the solar furnace. So we focus all the energy from the sun into a single point, and then this will in turn generate electricity through the difference of temperature. So in Malaysia, I don't think we have this. So this is only in US most probably in US. So the advantage is that this is practically free. So it can be used anywhere, because the sun, you can view the sun from anywhere, and then handy for low power users. So it's very convenient. You will not be able to drive most of our appliances which eat a lot of electricity, but it's very useful for all those low power appliances. So the problem with depending on solar power is it doesn't work at night because there's no sun, and it's a very expensive technology. So if you want to build anything that harness the energy from solar or from the sun, then this is expensive. So solar cell cost a great deal compared to the amount of electricity they produce. So in Malaysia, a solar panel might cost about 10k, 10,000 ringgit, but then it's not gonna save you a lot of money in the short run. So you need about at least 10 years to pay back your solar panel, to save enough to pay back your solar panel in terms of electricity cost. So if you were to install a solar panel in your house in Malaysia, since we have a lot of sunlight, it's not gonna save you a lot of money in the short run. So you need at least 10 years to get back the money you spent for the solar panel itself. So if the solar panel break, then if the solar panel break in between the 10 years, then you'll take an even longer amount of time lah. So it's cost invested for better energy is renewable energy. So we should try to make use of it lah, although we have to spend additional money on it. But it's free energy. But one thing is the initial investment is a lot lah, because it's expensive, it's a new technology. Okay, so the next is we have our wind power. So wind power is energy from the air. So we have used this energy since the Middle Age. So we have used it to grind the corn. So this is how windmill comes from. So we built a very large building, tall building, with a large propeller on the top. So the wind blows the propeller around, which turns a generator to produce electricity. So the large propeller are able to extract energy from the largest possible volume of wind. So we built a wind farm lah, technically. So we built a lot of windmill. We built a lot of them together, and then we use them to produce electricity. So the more tower we have, the more wind we have, the larger the propeller, the more electricity we are able to generate. So here it says that the best place for wind farm are in coastal area. So it's actually very windy at the coastal area. And then at the top of rounded hill, open plains, and gap in mountain. So we want to build the wind farm at a place where the wind is strong and reliable. So this is a way in which the wind will blow onto the propeller blade, and then we have a gearbox and generator inside the windmill, and then this is our tower. So once the wind hit the propeller, it will in turn turn the gearbox and the generator inside this windmill. So this is how they generate electricity using windmill lah. So wind is free. There's no waste or greenhouse gases, and the land beneath can still be used for farming. It's a good method of supplying energy to remote area. And lastly is, if you have a wind farm, it can be a tourist attraction lah. So wind is not always predictable. So the disadvantage to this wind power, and then suitable area for wind farm are often near the coast where land is expensive. And then some people might think that covering them is unsightly, and you can kill birds. So birds migrate from area to area. So if you at the height at which we build the windmill, if the bird were to actually fly into the windmill, then they will die lah. We can kill them lah. And then it can affect television reception and noisy. So because there's resistance to windmill for it to generate electricity through the gear, when the windmill is actually generating electricity, it's actually producing noise pollution. So a wind generator makes a constant low swishing noise day and night lah when they are generating electricity. And lastly is wind power is renewable. Wind will keep on blowing, so you want to use it lah. So the last is hydroelectric. So it makes sense to use the energy from which is readily available naturally to us. So the last one is hydroelectric lah. So hydroelectric power is generated from falling water. So like in the case of the windmill, we built a water mill to grind corn to make food for us during the ancestral time. So nowadays we actually have a lot of hydroelectric power station. So it's able to generate about 20% of the world's electricity. So how it functions is a dam is built to trap water, usually in a valley where there is an existing lake. So water is allowed to flow through tunnel in the dam to turn turbines and thus drive generators. So advantages of the hydroelectric power of the dam. So once it's built, energy is free lah, no waste or pollution. It's more reliable than solar, wind, tidal, or wave power. So all this depends on the condition of the environment. So for them, because we are essentially releasing the water that's accumulated in, we are able to determine when we want to generate the power. And then the water can be stored above the dam, ready to cope with peak in demand. So once we store the power, which is the water in the dam, and we release it, so we are able to get our energy from this water. So hydroelectric power station can increase to full power very quickly. So electric can be generated constantly. So this is the advantage towards a dam building a dam. Okay, so there's always a good to the bad side. The bad side is the dam are very expensive to build. So because you need to require the dam to hold a large amount of water, this water pressure is actually very strong. So if you do not build a very strong structure, then when the dam break, you have flooding, which will destroy any residential or any town that is in the path of the flood. But once you build it up, you can actually use it to control the flood and irrigation. So the cost can be shared. So building a large dam, this is one of the disadvantages, will flood a very large area upstream. So usually you build it, usually the stream is a river. So we are essentially blocking up the river to create a lake. If you do not have a lake naturally there, you are actually blocking off a river to create a dam. So when we block off an area and the water is accumulated, we are essentially killing off any natural habitats there, or we are destroying their living area and also killing off all the plant there to have our dam. So that's one of the best side when you choose a suitable site, or then we are actually impacting the environmental there. So which comes to this, finding a suitable site can be difficult. So the impact on residents and environment may be unacceptable. So environment in terms of problems to animal, we destroy their living space, and any plant life which is gonna be submerged due to the dam is gonna die off. And then we have to make sure that there is no residents along the downstream the river. So if you have resident downstream the towards the river, if we were to have a problem with the dam or we were to release the dam, then you will impact the resident along the line along the downstream of the river. So finding a suitable site is difficult. Then we have our water quality and quantity downstream can be affected. So because we are essentially blocking off the river, the normal path in which the downstream river will surely be affected because we are essentially blocking off most of the water from going down the dam. So any plant or marine life or animal which use the downstream will be affected. So mostly on marine life lah. So if there's a marine life in which they need to go up and down the stream, then they will not be able to use this stream lah. But one thing good is hydro is renewable. Hydrological cycle will be ensured that the dam will be full of water. So if the dam is full with water, we will have electricity lah. And then this is very clean electricity and very reliable unless we have no rain. So this is a picture of how a dam works. So water is allowed to flow out, and then when water is allowed to flow through a tunnel, which will in turn drive the turbine and a generator, this will generate us electricity. So we have our biomass. Lastly is our biomass lah. So biomass is energy from organic material. So this is referred to the organic material that has stored energy through the process of photosynthesis. So many of the biomass fuel used today comes in the form of wood product, dried vegetation, crop residue, and aquatic plants. So it includes solid waste, which can be burned to provide heat or used to make steam for a power station. So we can use any product, either the part from the corn in which we cannot eat, and our garbage, we burn it up and we can use it to power our power station. So it became one of the most commonly used renewable energy in the last 2 decades, since we are producing a lot of trash, a lot of rubbish. So we instead of just burying them in the landfill or throwing them away, we burn all this fuel up. So it's a widely utilized source of energy due to its low cost and indigenous nature. So as we use it up to 35% in developing country. So the advantage to disadvantage to that is that it makes sense to use waste material because the fuel is very cheap and there's less demand on the earth resources. But there's a disadvantage to it lah. So if we do not have enough waste, then we will not be able to generate our electricity lah. So now as we are practicing to reuse, reduce, and recycle, then there will be less way to obtain power from all this biomass or waste. The next is we burn the fuel, so it makes greenhouse effect because essentially we are burning all our waste and our waste isn't exactly clean, so we will pollute the environment. And then some waste are not available all year around, so it's not just rubbish lah. If you can, we want to burn the corns, we want to burn our palm oil, so all this might not be available all year round. So it's not easy to provide a constant stream of waste material in which we do not use to make money off to burn to generate electricity or energy. So at the end of it, biomass is renewable as we are going to keep making waste product. So any product we manufacture, there will be a waste at the end of it. So it just makes sense to just use the waste. We don't want to waste any part. We just use the waste to generate electrical energy for us. So we can always plant more tree and grow more biofuel product like corn and sugarcane. So those are renewable too. So instead of just depending on the waste product that we have, we can actually grow bioproduct fuel like corn and sugar. So we can use that to fuel the power station lah. So we can burn all this corn and sugar, but by burning all this corn and sugar, this is not a clean energy lah. We are essentially releasing the CO2 in which the plant absorb into the environment. So we are essentially making more greenhouse gases. Okay, so I think I don't have enough time to cover for this, so let's stop here.